Hello friends, welcome to my corner of the internet. My name is Fats. I am coming to you with a good old-fashioned monthly wrap-up video, but the only difference between a normal monthly wrap-up and what I'm doing today is I am only speaking about the books that haven't been brought up before. And by that, I mean if a book has come up in a longer discussion or if a book was in a vlog, I will not be talking about it today. This is just me filling in the gaps of anything that otherwise hasn't yet seen the light of the camera. And I'm going to warn you right now, this might feel a little unorganized and chaotic because it is Friday. I just got off work and I need to film and edit this to get it up by tomorrow morning when you're watching it right now. And I didn't take notes. I didn't prepare. And I'm really just going to stumble my way through this. So let's get right into it. I've got some books next to me that I'm going to go through first. And then I'm going to double check my Goodreads for any audiobooks or anything that I had to return to the library. Now, first book that I have here is Dirty Lying Fairies by Sabrina Blackberry. Now, this is a book that, from what I remember, and that is the biggest issue that I have with this book, is I genuinely don't remember this plot. I don't remember my characters. I'm not remembering my story. And it was when I picked this book up from my stack of books that I need to return to my library that I really felt like I needed to take away a star or something because it didn't leave any amount of a lasting impression. But the story itself opens up with our main character who meets a dark and mysterious man at a party/art gallery viewing. He is the owner of the art gallery. And in a few interactions, she accidentally becomes ensconced into the fairy world. This means she starts seeing fairies. This means she starts changing. How she looks changes. What she sees around her changes. What she recognizes changes. And she falls into this fairy realm. From there, you have what the author and a lot of reviewers describe as being a slow burn romance. It wasn't a slow burn romance. It was a horribly paced romance, in my opinion, because the concept of it being romantic was just a little bit of, I find this mutual attraction. And then suddenly they were naked, but they were naked suddenly at the end. So it still had an insta-love feeling. It's just that the insta-love didn't happen until the end. That's not slow burn. That's horribly paced. I didn't much care for the plot. I didn't really much care for the actual world building and story building itself. And I didn't really like my main characters at all. I finished it. So I wasn't so offended for it to result in a DNF. I finished the book, which says a lot because I won't DNF. So I think it was like a time filler. Again, I think because I don't remember this book and I didn't have the energy to really try to refresh my memory. Next, I have a romance that hit. Get a life, Chloe Brown. This is a book that is hyped up and for good reason. Let a man talk to me like this. Let a man affirm me and support me and care about me like this. And here are the aspects of the book that I like. You do have a disability rep that I do think is well maintained throughout the book, well described throughout the book, and also doesn't become, while it is a large part of our main character's identity, it isn't their entire personage. I do have a lot of this character that isn't just this disability rep, that isn't all that defines her. Love that. I also love the representation of a man that was the victim of an abusive relationship. I don't think that's spoken about enough. And, okay, I'm going to say it. I would dunk me a ginger in a glass of ice cold milk and gobble them down. I like a ginger. I think it's odd, like his picture here isn't quite ginger, but like from the long hair, the artist, the starving artist, coming more comfortable in himself. And let me tell you something. I didn't get any amount of cringe from this spice. I kind of liked the like dry humor, sarcastic, biting banter that we get from Chloe. I ate this up. I ate it up. I hear that the second book, The Second Sister, is the best book. You will see me again, Talia Hibbert. You will see me again because I devoured this. Devoured it. The third act breakup was so annoying to me. The misunderstanding of it all and the fact that it was 3 whole pages. It felt so unnecessary. I didn't need that. That could have been like a discussion or a point of like headbutting, but a whole third act breakup that lasted those 3 pages and like, but I forgave that because I enjoyed the book as much as I did. Hold on. There's one book that I want to save to talk about later. And I want to get through a couple more because I'm excited to talk about one. The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw is a teeny little horror novella where you have a mermaid who is joined by this mysterious plague doctor. And one day, this mermaid, who you should know has teeth, these mermaids devour humans. It's not like your classic Little Mermaid tale. And so you have these murderous human-eating mermaid and this mysterious plague doctor that walks around with his mask. And they come across this collection of kids who don't age. And you get a little bit of like a cult sort of story in it. One thing I will say, this book was beautifully written. The ambiance of it was so good, but I don't know if Cassandra Khaw keeps a thesaurus at her side or if she's just, I don't know, flexing that she knows every word on earth. There is a point where I was enjoying this book and I was definitely into the ambiance, but Khaw's vocabulary would have me Googling. So it would take me out because I would Google. But at the same time, I'm not mad at that. Like, I just need to be smarter, I guess. I don't know. But I loved this. It did exactly what it needed to. And I would say that the body horror of it all was disgusting. It was disgusting. And the ending, I was satisfied with the ending. I really was. I think this could have been a full book, though. I do think I could have gotten a whole book out of this, which that's my only complaint. I wanted more, but I think that me wanting so much more speaks a lot to the novella itself. I then have a horror that didn't hit as hard, and that is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. This is a story of a crew of astronauts who are exploring an abandoned space station. They don't know why it has been abandoned. They don't know why people have sprinted away from it. But the other thing you need to know, and part of my frustration with this book, is this crew lost a crew member in a past excursion. And that crew member in her loss was replaced by a psychiatrist who is our main character and the POV of this book. And that psychiatrist is coming on to be a part of the crew, but also primarily there so she can kind of work through the feelings, work through what's happening with this crew who lost a very important person to them, right? First off, let me just say, this was slow. This was slow, and I love a slow burn horror where I feel the anxiety and I feel the fear. I didn't have that. I just had a good chunk of the book where I didn't feel horror. And then when it picked up, it did get interesting. And then S.A. Barnes did what happened in the, what was it, Dead Silence? Where I was frustrated with the ending of this one. And I gotta say it. I love that S.A. Barnes has opened my mind up to a subgenre of horror that I love. I think I love space horror. I think I love it because the concepts of these have me so excited, but Barnes isn't doing what I want. And this is the second book where this ending has frustrated me. So I don't know if I'll do another Barnes. I might do like a 3 strikes you're out type of thing and give her one more chance. But ending of this frustrated me. But back to the main character who frustrated me. So she's the psychiatrist. She's supposed to be helping this group of people, these astronauts. But she has trauma herself. And the trauma that she has, she literally can't focus. She's like walking and spacing out and getting triggered constantly. And it was like, I don't believe your position. I don't believe your positioning on this team, because she couldn't even walk down a hallway without spacing out, getting flashbacks, feeling traumatized. It just really hindered her character for me. Also, her need and obsession, like what kind of should have propelled the book was a character on this crew is found dead. And you're kind of getting to the bottom of what had happened. Is it like one of those brain diseases? Did somebody else do it? Is there somebody on this space station? Like how did this happen? But yeah, it dragged. It really dragged. And it's not a short book for me to feel that it had dragged so much and then to feel so dissatisfied with how it ended. Next, I wanted to catch you up on how far I am in my manga that I've chosen for these next couple of months. I have gotten up to volume 8. And let me just tell you what's happening. This is Oku. Now, the general premise of this book is that there is a horrible plague, the red pox plague, that has swept through the nation. Like 2/3 of men are killed. But women are now in great surplus. So men and childbearing is now a commodity. It is something that is placed on a pedestal because not everybody can now get married. Oku, the inner chambers, is set in this inner chamber of the king, who is now, I guess, a queen, the lord of the land. And the lord keeps her own little inner chambers gaggle of the most attractive, fertile men that she can, just in the hopes of continuing the line. Now, where I'm at and how I'm feeling currently. So when you start this series, you open up in present day. And the Lord is this absolute stickler of a woman, and you're getting to know her. You're growing a soft spot for her, and you're understanding these women. Even though they're in power, they're still stuck in the system of only being valued if they can carry on the line. That's all you see these women as. They need these men. It might not be a man in power, but men still sort of like run what's happening. If she can't get pregnant, she can't have a child. If she doesn't have her inner chambers and this inner sanctum, she's useless in a sense. And add to that other superpowers don't know that so many men have been killed off and that our Lord is a woman. So there's actually men even positioned to fake like they are the Lord when they have other countries come to visit. So men are still the face of power, even though behind the lines it's a woman. So in present day, we have this super cool Lord. She just came in and she wants to know how governance has come to where it is, how the inner sanctum has come to where it is, because there's exorbitant money spent on like the dressings of what is essentially a court whore. And she wants to know just how this positioning of power and how she should view herself and this history of the realm. But that history isn't really spoken about. It's hidden because, like I said, they don't even want this known by other countries. So our Lord in the present day goes to find the man who keeps the record keeper. And you dive into that history. And I think it's up until volume 7 that you are just going from the start of the Red Pox Plague and you come up to the present. And then by book 8, you're now in the present. So you have this whole back history. Now, I'm dumb. I did have moments where names got a little confusing and I would forget the significance of a person here and a person there. I'm not going to lie about that, because what happens with this person, and what happens with this ruler and this guy in the inner sanctum and this head lady and this caretaker affects every single, there's such a trickle down butterfly effect that comes from every single person in power, person in charge, even every single head whore. Essentially, again, I hate to say it, but they're just the queen's whores. That's all they are. Anything that anybody does, there's a lot of political play. There's a lot of conversation play. People are dying. People are getting killed. There's a lot of conniving happening in here. And every single one affects another. For example, we have a queen who comes into power who has mental disabilities. And then you sort of see how the government is ran around this woman, because even though she has mental disabilities and she can't quite rule, decisions are being made outside of her. And then she just sort of falls into liquor and sex. And you see like the effects of what not being a ruler is on her. So you get so much from each of these women. And you come to know so many of the people that are kept in these inner chambers. And you like seeing the dynamic of the desperation that it is to have a child and the relationship that comes of that, and like how sex is treated. It's really good. Love it. Now that I'm back in the present and I'm seeing these characters age, I'm still so invested. I am. But I'm at a point where I'm like, what is to come of this? I've traversed years and years and years and years and centuries of rulers and leadership. And now that I'm back in the present, it's like, where do we go from here? What does happen now? Because it does bring a little bit of a hopeless feel to have traversed all this time and then to have been brought to the present. I'm invested. I'm loving it. I'm still having a good time. At this point, I'm just kind of feeling like I've traversed all this time. I've lost so many characters, and people that I've liked, we've lost. And even seeing the dissolution of society around them, and the angry farmers and the businessmen and the seeing all this happening, it's like I'm impatient almost, which again could be good. My impatience shows that I'm invested. Having a good time there. Now, I need to talk about a series that I'm buddy reading a series. So usually where I would crush through this, I'm having to slow down because me and a friend are slowly reading through it, and we check in at every 25% mark just to see where the other is at and just to make predictions, talk about characters. I have finished the second book of the Bloodsworn trilogy by John Gwynne. This is The Hunger of the Gods. Now, let me just tell you about what's happening in this series. I'm going to tell you what happened in the first book, and then I'm going to tell you how I'm feeling by the second book, because I don't think I've really talked about this, and I'm having an amazing time. So, first book was called The Shadow of the Gods. That book has multiple point of views. You have 3 point of views. First, you have Orca. Orca is a wife. She is a mother. And Orca becomes mixed up in a horrible event where she finds out that her neighbors, both the husband and wife, have been slaughtered and their son has been taken. Orca becomes intermixed in that. In another point of view, you have Varg. Varg is a thrall. He has a collar around his neck, and he is essentially a slave to an owner. And Varg has just escaped, and he fights his way into being a part of the Bloodsworn. Now, the Bloodsworn are hands for hire, but they're known as being people who have lived through so many legends, and stories will be told about them. Varg is now a part of them. The third point of view you have is Elvar. Elvar is a part of another group, hands for hire, called the Battle Grim. She grew up in a castle. So fitting into the Battle Grim is a little bit difficult because, again, they're hands for hire. They're traversing. But the Battle Grim, they don't have legends told about them. They haven't lived something that the bards would sing about. They become intermixed in a story that'll be sung for generations. But Elvar is coming into herself, trying to understand herself, trying to fit in, trying to prove herself to her father. Now, with the way that book 1 goes, seeing Varg becoming a part of a crew of people and the relationships and friendships that he's building, the fight, seeing Varg grow, loved it. Seeing Elvar grow, loved it. Seeing Orca seek revenge. Orca is seeking revenge. I'm not going to tell you for what. But she is killing people left and right. And the way that book 1 ends, there is betrayal, there is death, and there are monsters. That is how book 1 ends. It's an insane cliffhanger. Book 2 picks up right where it left off, but you've gotten more point of views by book 2. And one thing that I'm loving is every single point of view felt so important. Because in book 2, you remember how I said there was a betrayal in book 1? In book 2, you're going to get their point of view. You still have Orca's point of view, you still have Elvar's point of view, and you still have Varg. But now you have the betrayer, that horrible human that I honestly can't stand them and I need them to die. You have them as a point of view. And you get a 5th point of view as well, is a character that has killed the brother of another one of our favorite characters. And so we have a favorite character whose entire goal is to kill our 5th point of view. So it's interesting because what book 1 built was expanded into book 2. Now let me tell you about how I felt at the end of book 2. Pain. Oh, I felt pain at the end of book 2. I was shocked at the end of book 2, and at the near the end, probably around right here, an event happened where all I could think was, holy F. Our evil force is way stronger than I was giving them credit for. So learning about the bad guy. It wasn't until near the end of this one that I was like, oh no, this bad guy is powerful. And that's built up throughout the story. You're learning about these people. You're learning about so much of the lore. Lore is built and built and built. I am so deep. My friend, though, who I'm buddy reading with, they're on vacation. So I'm not going to get to the 3rd book anytime soon. Anytime soon, I mean this week. I think next week I'll be able to get to the 3rd book, but this has been taking up my entire heart and soul. I'm so invested in this. I need to know how it ends. Now, one thing about the 3rd book is the covers of each of these books is a big player to the story, right? And that 3rd book has this snake monster on the front. And the predictions that I have for what that might mean for the story has me so on the edge of my seat. So I read that. Now I need to pull up my Goodreads to figure out what's missing, because this isn't all that I've read. Okay. So I have also listened to on audiobook Sinister Magic by Lindsay Varoker. This is going to be such a niche thing to say, but if you like the Mercy Thompson series, I think you would like Sinister Magic, because this is a story of a woman who is a bounty hunter for the mythical, and it's only the mythical that happen to kill humans. But our bounty hunter also happens to have a sidekick that is like a white demon tiger. And also she like bumps into this dragon who just kind of pops up, but we're also like solving a mystery. It's so Mercy Thompson coded. It was a good time. Such a, like one of those series that could be like a cozy come back to series. Only thing that sucks is my library doesn't carry any more of the books. So I've put in a request, so hopefully my library listens. Then I read Tonight I Burn, which is the first of a duology, I think. All I can say is this is romantasy with a really cool magic system and a sprinkling of polyamory. The magic system is so cool, though, if you want like a romantasy with something a little bit different than what you're used to when it comes to witches. But what I do have to say about it is the polyamory aspect of it frustrated me, because one of our love interests ended up just feeling like convenience. You know, like we were just stuck with this person, and due to being around them so long, that's where that romance came from. So the polyamory aspect of it didn't quite feel natural, didn't quite feel romantic. So it's romantasy, though. If you want a little romantasy pickup, I pick up romantasies. I complain about them all the time, but I'm gonna pick up romantasy. Up next, I read They Bloom at Night, which I would like to say that this is a YA written for YA. It's one of those books where I had to sit back and I'm like, I wasn't fully satisfied, but I wasn't the intended audience of this book. So I always appreciate a YA for YA. Now, because we've experienced a lot of YA written for adult audiences, this one is a great one for the YA audience, I would say. It's still a good book, though, because it's horror, because there's this red algae that has just sort of taken over the entire setting of this story. And I love it because a lot of the story is set on a boat. So you have bog, you have swamp, you have algae, you have these mutated creatures. And you sort of have this story of monsters in plain sight. But the story really picks up where there's this, like, I don't really know the dynamic, but it's like the leader, this gangster mob boss leader almost of this town, this area, commands our main character, whose name is Noon, and her mother to find the creature that is drowning residents. And that guy says, take my daughter with you as collateral. And it's a story of, there's some queer love romance to it. There's some trauma that has to be dealt with. And I think it was handled really well and very empathetically without being just triggering. So it's treated very gently. Love that. But at the same time, you have something isn't quite right with our main character. So there is a very body horror element to this. I would say this gave me, there is a River Solomon book that I absolutely love. I'll put it on the screen because I don't remember the title right now. It felt like that. It felt like that. And it dealt with Asiatic culture. It dealt with the relationship of a mother to daughter. It dealt with growing up and coming of age. And I think it was done well for its intended audience. After that, I got into... Okay, so there's a video that I'm working on. For those of you who follow me on Goodreads, I just need to prepare you for what you're about to start seeing. And I need this to be a safe space because I'm working on something. But part of me working on something is I read I Married a Beast by Regine Abel. Now, you know how people are like, oh, cozy romance is so lame. I don't want any more cozy fantasy. I refuse to be talked down from the fact that this series isn't cozy fantasy. Because the entire premise of it is like, there's a dating agency who helps out underdeveloped alien colonies by sending a woman bride there. But here's the thing. This is smut. This is spice. Plot is so secondary because you know what they say? Part of adapting, and like one thing they've found in this dating agency is that these women adjust better if they're sort of thrown into the intimacy of it more quickly, because the longer intimacy is held off, the harder it is for people to adjust, right? So they need to consummate their marriage day of. So they meet, get married right outside of the space station, and they need to consummate that day. Now let me tell you about the beast that she married. 4 eyes, 4 arms, 2 hearts. Okay. I know we're not all mathematicians. I know we're book readers, and I know we're not mathematicians. But let me just say, I'm going to double it and give it to the next one. You know what I'm saying? you know what I mean by that? It's a good time. Everybody's naked. Oh, then I read The Employees by Olga Ravin. I read a lot this month. Did I go outside? Every month when I do these, I'm worried about how much I've read. But The Employees is one of those tiny little speculative books that really, really worked for me. The book itself is set in the near future, thousands and thousands of kilometers away from Earth, on a spaceship where you have some inhabitants that are born and some inhabitants that are made. And they all have this sort of task, project that they are given. But there is an ambiguity around this project, and you aren't really meant to understand it. Now, one thing that really worked for me in this book is the form of it. It is like an HR documented report, which worked for me. Oh my goodness, I really enjoyed this. And I really think it handled its themes well, because there's like this quote, I'm going to say it incorrectly, but it's like, I'm not human, I'm a coworker. And it deals with corporate America. It deals with humanity. It deals with hopelessness, helplessness. And I think it does it so well in this sort of lilting, almost haunting prose. The way it's written is haunting. The actual topics aren't as haunting. And then it just falls the F apart by the end. It's a small book. I think it was interesting. I think it was a good time. One of those ones that I think handles that like literary hopelessness, the subgenre that is literary hopelessness, so well in the weird way that I really enjoy. I really enjoyed this one. Ooh, last 3 books. I'm going to start with another short one. It was Hunchback, translated fiction. There's a disability rep to this story, and there's also a really interesting relation to this story to like very real life events. And you know those books where the intent that the author has is not enjoyment, and the intent the author has is discomfort? Because with my disabled main character, I believe she has fibromyalgia, or was that Chloe Brown? I'm so sorry. With our disabled character, there is a voyeuristic nature to reading about it. A voyeuristic nature that is so real life. This feeling that like somebody is disabled and you're looking at them with this sort of morbid interest. That's how it felt. And I hated that feeling. And the amount that mucus was brought up was really gross to me. But it accomplished what it set out to do, I think, and brought up disability and society and socioeconomic standings. I think it did that, and I'm glad it was short. I think that's the only reason I don't have problems with it, because when it's such a small book, I'm like, okay, like you did what you set out to do. You know, there was an intent with this book. It wasn't so much I was there for the story. The book had intent and it had topics it wanted to hit, and it hit them. I'm not a translator, but there is a feeling in this book that I don't know if it was fully translated in the way it needed to be. There was a sense that these words weren't quite flowing together correctly. If you want some disability rep translated fiction, it does it. It definitely does it. The graphic sex scenes, though, let me warn you, there's sex scenes. And again, it had such a voyeuristic nature because I felt icked out by it. But at the same time, it's like, am I icked out by the sex, or am I icked out because it's a disabled body? As a reader, you have to reflect on that. And I think that's what the author intended. Like, these sex scenes do make you feel gross. Why do you feel gross, though? I also read Lungfish by Megan Gillis. This book was written perfectly. When I think literary prose, this is the kind of literary that I like. So I do think my star rating for this, I put it very middle of the road, came from my enjoyment at how the words were strung together, but the story itself wasn't something that I quite liked. And it also has a theme that I love. I love this theme of losing somebody and grieving somebody and dealing with the loss of a person who is still very present, because it's a story of motherhood to a partner giving themselves away to addiction, because this family goes to this deserted, isolated island, and this woman is dealing with that in what feels like a petri dish of her own making. It's very isolated, very meandering, very beautifully written, very choppy, but choppy in the way that I think works. I didn't care. I don't think about the story so much as I enjoy the way this one was written. Take that with a grain of salt, I think, because I just liked it. I had to return it. Otherwise, I wish I had like kept this section so I could read it to you, but I had to return it. Pick it up if you like books about motherhood and dealing with that and the concepts of like addiction, loss, parentage, growing up, aging out, change is something that you are interested in. Give it a shot. It is slow. It does drag, but it's not the kind of book that you devour in a sitting and you need to come back to. It's a book that you take in chunks and bites. It is a book that I think lasted me like 2 weeks, and I finished books around it when I would just sort of pick away at this one, which I wasn't mad at. You just have to have the expectations in the right place. And then I read The September House by Carissa Orlando. I don't know how to feel about this book because it is a haunted house story, but the narrator's tone has a levity to it that cushioned the scary elements of it. If you're not a horror reader or you're a good old-fashioned scaredy cat like me, I think this one falls into scaredy cat horror because the levity of the narrator really helped soften the spooky elements, because it's technically very scary, but the levity that you get from it. And let me explain. Because you have a husband and wife who move into a home. They're new homeowners, but there are some spooky, creepy things happening. But the way that the main character deals with it and the way that she brushes off these spooky people, like, for example, she has a maid that lives in house and she's really great at making tea. She's a better cook than she ever was, but she also has taken an axe to the face, you know? And you have this very terrifying little boy whose jaw unhinges. He's biting. He's screaming. It sounds like a train horn. You have that absolutely terrifying character, but she just has to undig his mother's bones and sing him a lullaby. So she is like, I need to go outside and get covered in dirt again to go grab his mother's bones. And it's these scenes that feel like they're taken from movies. There's a self-recognition to this book of, it has all the bits of other horror movies. It has a scary basement. It has this terrifying history that you deal with. But the way the story picks up is the woman with the levity. Her daughter comes to visit her because her husband, this woman's husband, has disappeared a few weeks ago. And the daughter's like, we need to find him. So they're looking for the husband. There is that issue. And the woman, when the daughter's coming, she's like, oh no, now I need to hide the ghost and I don't want her to be scared. It works. But there is a metaphor to the story as well, and a deeper lesson that, while I think it was very heavy-handed, it was effective, but that's not what I enjoyed about it. There was this deeper meaning that I didn't necessarily care for, and I could have done without it. And it actually has a point where I think I ignore it to a certain degree because I was just enjoying this sort of haunted house. It feels like if Desperate Housewives got a hold of a haunted house and she was just doing the best she could to keep a home. It worked for me. It worked for me. It wasn't something that I would sing its praises to the hilltops, but I do want to say it's a scaredy cat horror. There were moments where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm freaked out, but I don't like basements. That's just me. If something's in a basement or an attic, I'm just automatically afraid. But the actual ghosts and the gore of it all, wasn't too terrified by. The dark history of it all was gross. Absolutely gross. There were moments where I was really skeeved out, but I wasn't kept up at night, if that makes any sense. Those are all the books that I read this month, minus, of course, the books that showed up in vlogs or showed up in other videos. I do have one book that I do want to shout its praises of. If you haven't seen the vlog or you're not a vlog person and you just wait around for wrap-ups, take my word on this one. Blood Sign by Deborah Falaye. It did show up in this vlog over here where I read a bunch of books that aren't really talked about, spoken about. This is a 5-star read for me. This is a 5-star read. If you take nothing else from this video, take this one. But it's YA fantasy. Don't you dare read the description. Don't read the synopsis on it. Just take my word for it and good luck. Make sure you have cookies or a comfort food for this book. That's all I have for you. I had a good month. My highs were high, and outside of that, it seemed like the books was either average or high. Nothing that I was super, super, super angry about that I spoke about today. You've seen, I've had a couple of frustrations this month, but of the books I did finish, it was pretty good. That's all I have. I am gonna talk to you next time.